My Slippers. I got to explain this to you. They are exclusive 3-tier cushioning system. It's like walking on clouds, right? We took the My Pillow patented foam, the one that you know and love, and they created a solid layer to provide incredible comfort. Don't forget to use the promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, and you will receive 40% off of your My Slippers. Your whole family's going to love it. Okay. Back from the border again. I cannot imagine what is happening to our country. Like every time I go to the border, every time I visit another city, I'm doing Fox News, Sean Hannity's show, and I talk to people. I think to myself, how is this possible in such a short period of time? Since the beginning of the year, since January 20th, you guys all know what I'm talking about. Since Biden has taken office officially, like how have we gone downhill so fast? Israel is up in smoke. Literally, there is fissures in the Middle East. We've got hackers taking down our pipelines, ransom being paid to these hackers. We have a border crisis that is swelling to the point of uncontrollable and, families suffering on both sides of the border, whether they're American families and farmers or people in the Midwest or people living along the border, as well as the children being trafficked. It's like non-stop. It feels like non-stop chaos. But guess what? I have hope. And in this podcast, you will hear a glass half full message as well as like horror. Just kidding. Because I don't know where I'm going to go with this, right? It's going to be like, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be happy. But I do have Congressman Mike Garcia from the great Antelope Valley. Do you notice I didn't say the great state of California? Because I think we're still working on that. I'm still kind of putting that all together in my head. The state itself is absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. I was born there. The government of California is a mess, except for Mike Garcia and a few others. And Mike Garcia is awesome. Remember, if for all of you that remember, when I went down to California in the Antelope Valley, the huge marijuana grows that have illegal marijuana grows that have popped up all over the valley and being run by cartels from all over the world. It's completely insane. I mean, we get ticketed, right, for having a lemonade stand in front of our house. And these guys are growing billions of dollars in marijuana and nothing's happening to them. Well, I have an update for you, a huge update. I have Congressman Mike Garcia on this show. I'm going to fill you in on my thoughts about Israel, our great ally, Israel. God bless Israel, and what they are going through. And the insane, by the way, insane lawmakers we have here in America and their anti-Semitic hate towards the state of Israel and the Jewish people. We are going to talk about that and so much more here at the Sara Carter Show. So you don't want to miss it at all. But before I get any further, I want to talk to you about an organization that means so much to me, and that is AMAC. I just love them. The Association of Mature American Citizens. There's no way I would have anyone else. Look, this is the best organization for those of you 50 and older in the United States of America. You have to look at AMAC because they will support the values that you have. It's not going to be like that other organization. You guys know who I'm talking about. I'm going to throw it out there, AARP. It's not like that at all. Go to AMAC. Fighting the good fight against reckless government spending and the ever-expanding scope of our federal government, helping small businesses, securing our borders, just like what I was trying to report on, right? From the U.S.-Mexico border, why I'm there, why I'm not with my family, and trying to get the truth out to you guys because the rest of the media isn't telling it. Well, AMAC, they actually fight for all of these issues. They actually fight for you. They fight for our nation. They fight for America. By joining AMAC, you are taking the first steps to saving the America that you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers, but without that liberal agenda, folks. Right now, we're actively fighting against the dangerous legislation being pushed in the form of H.R. 1. You all know about this, and H.R. 127. To learn more about those legislations, I want you to visit amac.us. I stand with AMAC. I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. Don't forget Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. That's amac.us/Carter. amac.us/CARTER, Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Isn't that true? Join today at amac.us/Carter. So where do we go from here? How do we handle what is happening in our nation? How do we take a step back and say, well, you know what? I mean, let's start with some craziness, right? Because I just flew back. From oh my gosh, talk about a great state, Texas. Texas is amazing. I don't even want to brag about it here because I'm afraid everybody's going to want to move there. It's like Texas is tilting the United States. Texas and Florida are getting really heavy. Everybody's moving there. Anybody with common sense, right? Why? Not because, they're trying to find gold or oil, but because the people and the government and the American values that what we all support, small businesses booming, doing their best, great governors, Governor Ron DeSantis, gosh, don't you think he should run for president of these United States? I sure do. I'm going to get Governor DeSantis on our show. And, the great governor of Texas, Governor Abbott. I mean, what a phenomenal guy, right? And I'm going to have the AG on our show very soon from the great state of Texas, the Attorney General. I'm going to have him, Paxton, on this show because he is doing a phenomenal job fighting the crazies out there. I mean, there's very few people who are willing to do that and stand up to the federal government. So he's going to be on the show too. But I was flying back. I'm on the plane. I got up at like 4:45. For those of you seeing me on YouTube and saying, wow, Sara looks a little bit for the wear. Well, you know what? I got up at 4:45 this morning in Del Rio to try to get to an airport. I was driving around in circles trying to find Enterprise Rent-A-Car like 5 in the morning. I mean, I literally rolled out of bed, just brushed my teeth, couldn't find any coffee, grabbed all my stuff that I had packed the night before, and was driving around in circles trying to find the Enterprise Rent-A-Car to drop off my car, and then realized, oh, wow, it's right there in the parking area. And I just have to leave my car there. So after doing that and panicking for a second, drop off my car. And remember, this is it, because now we've been told, actually officially by the CDC, so crazy that we don't have to listen to Dr. Fauci's triple mask mandates, that we don't have to be like covering up our entire faces. But remember, it's virtue signaling. So the left is like freaking out about this. There are people on the left that are like, I just want to cover my face. I just want someone to tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. I'm scared of everything. You tell me I'm scared of it, right? Let me cover my face. So I have this awesome face mask because it's the great state of Texas, and I have a Big Gov Sucks face mask as well. I just want to throw that out there. But I'm thinking oh my God, finally, and I saw, we can take it off. We can go in places. But then I see the weirdest tweet right this morning from POTUS, from the president of the United States. And it was just crazy. It was basically and I could look it up right now, but I don't have to, waste my time looking for it. But it was basically saying, you know what? For those of you who have been vaccinated, I made the choice to get vaccinated, but I understand if other people don't want to get vaccinated. I mean, that's your choice, right? This is America. This is America. But for those of you who've been vaccinated, great. But for those of you, who haven't, you're going to have to keep your face masks on. That's the rule. What rule is that, President Biden? What rule are we going to have to follow? Are you going to make us pull out our passport, our vaccine passport? Is that what we're going to have to do? Oh, that would be great because, we're going to have to show our vaccine passport, but we don't need any IDs to go vote. Think about that, folks. Think about that. They're going to violate your rights, HIPAA rights, all your rights. I mean, it's just total insanity. It is not the America, AMAC again, right? It is not the America that I love, the one that my husband fought for, the one that all of our forefathers fought for. The reason why people come here from all over the world, because they are fleeing that crap. They're fleeing that dictatorship, that stuff of, constantly being told how to live their life and taxes through the roof and not being able to build their small business and give a future to their family. That's why people come to America, because of a corrupt judicial system in their own countries. because of corruption, because of bad lawmaking, because of dictatorships, because of war. This is the greatest nation on earth, as long as we don't let it all fall apart, which is why I've got Congressman Mike Garcia here. He's going to give you a lot of hope. He is absolutely incredible. The guy is I tell you this, having to stand up to the California dictators, right? As a congressman, and by the way, in the beautiful Santa Clarita Valley, Santa Clarita, I got to tell you, it's like a dream. I can't even believe it's part of LA County, because Santa Clarita, Antelope Valley, it's just gorgeous. It's like these beautiful trees and hill country and just wonderful people, great weather. I don't know. I just really loved being there. So thank you everyone from Santa Clarita. You gave me faith that California could go back to being the California that I remember as a little girl. And I just thought it was just beautiful, and really love the heroism of the people in Antelope Valley that are standing up to these drug cartels. And that's what you're going to hear about during the interview. I know it's hard to believe. The border is not just the border, folks. We've got people from Mexico, Russia, China, Armenia, literally building drug farms, like illegal marijuana grows, selling this stuff for billions of dollars right under the nose and thumbing it, not hiding it, of our lawmakers and our law enforcement officers. They just don't even care, because there's no one out there to stop them. And you're going to hear this whole story. I know, for those of you that saw it on Sean Hannity, I know that you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this. This is that story. It's still ongoing. They are working to rectify that. We got big news on the show today about what the government is doing to stop it. But I want to take you back to the border for a minute. And back to I was telling you about my whole experience dropping off my car at Enterprise and then getting back to the airplane issue. So I get into, it's so cool. I love Del Rio. It's like this tiny airport with all of these, like just 2 counters, and then you like walk right through security. It's like amazing, right? Everybody there's really cool. Everybody's just very chill. It's, it's Texas, right? Everybody's fine, nice, and it was wonderful, even though it was so early in the morning. I didn't think I was going to make it. So I get on the plane, and the flight attendant is like basically, again, telling me how to wash my hands. You've got to wash your hands this many times. Do not remove your mask. If you do, you will be immediately like thrown off the plane onto the tarmac. No, she didn't say that. But basically, that's the way I felt. Jenny Terr, who works with me, she describes it as a prison bus. And I'm telling you, I feel like I'm on a prison bus. I'm getting yelled at. I'm being told that they are not going to serve me any coffee. And I'm already, like it's 5 a.m. or 5:30 or whatever. And I'm dreaming of coffee. It's like floating. I'm just like, this is insanity. The CDC just said that anybody who's been vaccinated, you're fine. Not that I was waiting for the CDC. I already knew that, right? Common sense. I've been vaccinated when I was a kid, before I went to Saudi Arabia. I had so many vaccinations. I can't even begin to tell you. God only knows what is running through my body. And I have been exposed to a lot of stuff. I'm sure of it. I worked in war zones. I traveled the world. I've, gotten sore throats. I've been sick. I've been exposed to people. It's just the way life is. We're just human beings. We're organisms. We're organic. We get sick. We catch stuff. We build immunities. Unfortunately, some things are far worse, and some people can't fight some of the viruses that we've seen out there. But we have all been lied to a lot, over and over and over again. And we're not supposed to question it, according to the government and according to other media outlets. We're not supposed to say, well, wait a minute. What happened 2 days ago that made the CDC, who's known about virus and epidemiology and all of this other stuff forever, decide that today was the day that we should all be free of the mask coverings on our face if we've had a shot? By the way, I think everybody can make their own choice on this. If you haven't had the vaccine and you don't want to wear a mask, I say you don't have to. This is America, right? I actually had COVID. I had COVID in December with my family, and we got through it. Thank God. It wasn't. I know I don't want to over exaggerate. It wasn't really that bad. I mean, I lost my sense of smell for like a month and a half. And I did have a low grade fever. For a time period, I had a low grade fever for maybe about 2 or 3 days, and I was a little bit achy. So it made me feel like I had the flu. Didn't throw up, didn't have anything else, but had that. And I got over it. I did my 2-week quarantine with the family, didn't go anywhere. And my daughter who had it, and she's young, didn't even feel it at all. She just had maybe one day where she was feeling a little bit tired. So we went through it. I made the decision to get the vaccine. I'm traveling a lot. I always get vaccinated. It's just my choice. It's my choice, just like it's your choice. But who is President Biden to tell us, that, for some reason it's a rule? What rule is that? I don't even know where that rule is. And by the way, what was it with that flight attendant that was telling me how to wash my... Are you tired of people telling you how to wash your hands, how to cough, how to walk, how to talk, whether you're 6 feet or 4 feet away from someone? I'm like, what nation am I living in? Am I in the Soviet Union? I got to tell you, I remember when the Soviet Union collapsed. It must have been like after that. It was probably around 1994. I was in the Czech Republic. And I remember my brother and I were taking a bus early in the morning from the military base. We were going into the Czech Republic. We wanted to go see what was going on there, do a visit, go to the bridge and see Prague. And we stop at this little diner on the border in the dark. It's early morning hours, sun's barely peeking up. It was winter. And there were all these guys, there was I don't know if it was a trash dump or something nearby, but there was this diner and everybody in there, all these guys were like smoking, like chain smoking, right? It was crazy. It was like, I walked in and I was like moving through the clouds of smoke, trying to find the bathroom. I was just like, this is what you do early in the morning when you're working, I don't know, in a coal mine, whatever they were doing. And then I get to the restroom and every door in the bathroom stall was open at exactly the same degree. It was like perfect, right? Just perfectly opened. And I remember there was a feeling of being there where everything was the same and very depressing. Like people just looked sad. There was poverty right there on that border town. And I remember I even saw some young girl. I hadn't thought about this in a long time. But I remember when we were taking the bus going towards Prague or Karlovy, maybe that's where we were headed. I saw some young girls off the side of the road too. And somebody told me, oh, they're prostitutes. These girls were very young, under 18 for sure. I don't know what age. And I said, I couldn't even imagine, right? I couldn't even imagine. But the system, it was the communist system that was still lingering, right? This black market, these government officials, this bureaucracy that always thought it knew what was best for the people. And it was never best for the people. The people were always last. Wherever the communist system spread, whatever it did, it always harmed the people that it touched. Why? Because always the bureaucrats, the Politburo in the Soviet Union, always the officials would get everything. They figured out the system. They work around the system. They get whatever the heck they want. Look at the Bidens. Look at how much money they got. Look at what Hunter Biden gets. Look at this. It's not our life, right? But it's okay to tell us how to live it's constant. You got to follow the rules. And then there's people that really are desperate. They're desperate to belong. They want to follow rules. They want people to tell them to wear a mask. They want an excuse to do that. Look at our world right now. We are more unsafe now than we were just several years ago. It's a mess. It's a mess. I'm going to move to the border really quick because I got to tell you, I wasn't sure if I was going to be mad or if I was just going to laugh when I heard, this is ridiculous, right? I can't even get an official border patrol tour. I have to go with the union because the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is like basically putting the kibosh on journalists from telling the real story, at least from their official border patrol standards. But guess what? While I was in Del Rio, I found out that Univision, which is a Spanish language television, got a full tour from DHS. How about that? None of us, Fox News, I don't even think CNN, maybe CNN's friends with Univision. Maybe they borrowed their tape. But we didn't get it. We didn't get it. And now we have DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. By the way, kind of upsetting to me that he is Cuban because I am half Cuban. I just cannot believe this guy. What a jerk. You got to hear this. This is Senator Hawley putting Alejandro Mayorkas on the line. Listen to this. He's a full out liar. Listen to this.
You did say that we're not telling you not to come, though, right? You said that. You remember that?
I'm sorry, Senator. I apologize.
You remember saying, don't you, that we're not telling you not to come? Those are your words that you said in a press conference. You said that, right?
I don't recall saying that. I don't believe.
You don't recall saying that?
That's correct, Senator. I have never said.
We'd be happy to refresh your memory for you and some questions for the record. I'm sure that is interesting news, and I'm sure everyone will. The Secretary's just said he doesn't have any memory of making those comments. That's Senator, extraordinary.
It's extraordinary how easily they forget what they actually said. I mean, and it's a game to them, right? This is a game by the bureaucrats. Let me explain to you what is happening on our border. Children are dying, immigrant children, who are being sent alone, who are being abused by the people that are trafficking them, who are alone, like those children that were found on the farm. I was out there with Katie and Jimmy Hobbs, these amazing Texans. I'm like friends with them. We're like texting each other now because they're the kind of people I want to be friends with. They're the salt of the earth. They don't lie. They don't, disguise who they are. They're not Mayorkas. They're going to tell it like it is. And I'm going to play that clip for you, actually, when Congressman Mike Garcia and I are on together shortly. But these are salt of the earth people. They're not liars. They're not politicians. They find 5 little girls abandoned. They find them 11 months old to 8 years old. Now, my youngest child is 8. These children were abandoned on their farm. They have an onion and watermelon farm in Texas along the Rio, in Del Rio. And it's gorgeous, but it's dangerous. There are rattlesnakes out there. There are javelinas. There are smugglers. There are drug smugglers. And whoever brought these little girls over just left them there. 2 of the girls had strep throat. They were crying all night long in the darkness, until Jimmy Hobbs found them. I want you to think about that when you look at your children. And think about the policies that people like Biden and Kamala Harris, and that act like they care, that act like they're doing the humanitarian thing. There is nothing humanitarian about what is happening at our border. Families, American families, don't even feel like we're a sovereign nation anymore. Children are being exploited. Women are being exploited by criminals. So I want you to hear Martha Raddatz sum it up for Alejandro Mayorkas about, and it exposes that he's lying. He's lying to Senator Hawley. This is what they do. This is what they do in Washington. They lie, and they don't expect you to hold them accountable because they always say, I can't recall. Listen to this.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I want to start right there. We heard the sheriff say it, the governor say it, and the migrants I spoke to say it. They are coming across because they believe they will be welcomed under the Biden administration. You said yourself 3 weeks ago, we're not saying don't come. We're saying don't come now. President Biden had a stronger message later, but the messages are mixed at best, Mr. Secretary.
Martha, good morning. The message is quite clear. Do not come. The border is closed. The border is secure.
Look, they are so full of themselves. They just cannot get their story straight. And they expect us to be gaslighted. They just don't want us to know the truth. It's like the same thing with everything, right? It's the border. We're being gaslighted by the border, right? What they're doing to us. It's almost like abuse. It's like full on abuse with our masks. We can't even ask a question. Otherwise, we want to kill our grandparents. Literally. Like, I've had a vaccination. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you questioning? Are you questioning the mask mandate? Cover that face of yours. Cover it. Scrub your hands with everything. Go to the bathroom. Learn how to wash your hands. Cough in your elbow. Don't look at me. Stand 6 feet away from me. It's like, holy cow. What is going on here? Guys, we don't have to do that. We have the right to question everything and hold these officials accountable because guess what? It's our taxpayer dollars that is paying their salary. They work for us. Don't ever let the bureaucracy trick you into believing that you work for them, that they are your bosses. That's like old Soviet style thinking, right? That's like those crazy people in our colleges right now that are trying to brainwash our young, impressionable young people, young adults, into believing that the United States is to blame for everything on the planet. That's communism. That really is. So just don't even listen to it. You all have seen what has happened in our country. I mean, the hacking of the Colonial Pipeline. I mean, hackers are everywhere. And think about it. They hacked into a pipeline. They can hack into your home. They can hack into your internet, into your servers, into your private emails. And guess what? They can hack and steal your home from you right underneath your nose. I've warned you before about home title theft. Can thieves really steal my home's title? Yes, they can. Just like you saw happen this past week. Take it from a thief who recently admitted stealing more than 150 homes and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. This is exactly why you need Home Title Lock. After the thief steals the title, borrows against your home, or sells the property, it's 60 to 90 days before you even figure out you become the victim of home theft. Think about that. You wake up one morning and you realize you don't even own your home. By that point, you're getting foreclosure notices and you realize that you've got several mortgages on your house. Not only that, you don't even own your home anymore. It's not even in your name. So do what I did and protect your home's title with Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then sign up for 30 free days of protection during which there won't be any high-risk breaches. Again, go to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code RADIO, RADIO. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. So Mike Garcia, his office reached out to me, the congressman from the state of California, and filled me in on a story that was developing in his district. I have been covering the border, and like I say over and over again, the border is not just the border, it's inside our nation. The line has moved deep within our country. The cartels are moving narcotics, contraband, human trafficking all across our country. People are suffering all across the globe because of terrible policies established by the government, making it seem like it's open season in America, like you could just come over here and you don't even have to apply, you don't even have to have documents or papers. So people are suffering on both sides of the border. But in California, I was stunned that the cartels were actually just operating right there out in the open with these highly sophisticated illegal marijuana grows and making billions of dollars. Congressman Mike Garcia is fighting that. He is fighting that like he did when he was in the military, like he did when he went to Annapolis Naval Academy. And by the way, he is also an F-18 Super Hornet strike fighter pilot from the Navy. I mean, think about that. What a resume, right? I mean, this is somebody who really knows how to take the fight to Washington, D.C. And I'm so grateful that he's on the show today. Thank you so much, Congressman Garcia, for being on the show, the Sara Carter Show. We haven't seen each other in a little over a week, but I got to tell you, my experience on the ground with you in Antelope Valley was so stunning and eye-opening. I described it for everyone at the opening of the show, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about, and I don't know, Rich, if you're there, if you can hear me, if we could play some of this video as we open up, what your constituents are dealing with is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, stunning in a bad way, heartbreaking to see our, beautiful bucolic suburb of northern LA County just being pillaged the way it is with these illegal marijuana grows. This is a state where growing marijuana is legal under the right regulations and These are massive transcontinental criminal organizations that are not only paying it, but also subsidizing with illegal immigrants and indentured servant the operations of these grows as well. And it's just on such a massive scale. I don't think you can really appreciate it. Even just seeing these videos, you don't realize how much acreage it's probably over 1,000 square miles of the Antelope Valley and the surrounding areas are actually being victimized right now with these illegal grows. It's pretty hard.
It is heartbreaking. I got to tell you, Congressman, that when I first heard the story and when I was first contacted by the great people that work in your office, I'm always throwing them a bone. And I'm always saying they're just so great. You have such a great team that works with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And they've been really focused on getting the truth out to the American people like you. And first and foremost, protecting your constituents from what's happening there. But I got to tell you, when I first heard about it, I was like, this can't be real.
Right.
There just can't be these massive marijuana grows run by Russian mobs, Mexican cartels, Armenian gangs, Chinese triads, and the list goes on and on. We don't even understand the complexity of this. I mean, you talked about, the indentured servants. Let's just start with that because we are in the middle of a crisis right now on the U.S.-Mexico border, something we've never seen before. I've been back and forth on the border. Part of the reason I went to your area, to Antelope Valley, to cover this story is because I believe it's part of this massive crisis that's spilling into our country.
That's right.
I want you to hear this clip. I think I was just so taken back when I was in Texas and how, right now farmers and ranchers are saying they don't feel like it's a sovereign nation anymore. And they're so worried about the people that are being trafficked into this country. And just listen to this. There were 5 young children found here on your property. I mean, right. So what is it that you're dealing with consistently?
Well, we're dealing with that all the time, but this is the first time we've actually found the little babies by themselves.
Describe to me the day that you all found them.
I had one guy working in this area, and I thought I'll go check on him. About 8:30, I came the way we came in right there, and just happened to look over, and there they were. And they had been there since the afternoon before, so they had been there all night.
So they were out here all night alone, no food, no water, no supervision or anything.
What would your message be to President Biden and to his administration about how serious the situation is here?
Well, he needs to shut it down. I mean, it's just going to get worse and worse. I mean, there's no end to it. There's not going to be.
Yeah. I don't feel like we're a sovereign nation anymore. We don't have a border down here in the South. There is no border.
What do you think he needs to do?
Shut it down. Stop it.
Go back to at least like Trump had. It was working pretty good.
Yeah.
And what is your worst fear if he doesn't?
It's going to get bad this summer.
We're going to find them dead around here instead. Luckily, I found those alive.
I mean, there is that sense of like, it is, because you see a child, baby, 11 months old. The oldest of the group apparently was 8 years old. All the children were crying. 2 of the kids had strep throat. They had been completely abandoned by adults in an area, by the way, I don't think people understand the Rio Grande Valley. It's not only is it extraordinarily hot as this time of the year approaches, but there's javelinas, there's rattlesnakes. The river was right near them. They could have tumbled down the mud slide area into the river. Just the fact that they survived was incredible. But taking it from the border and going all the way into California and seeing how the two connect. I mean, do you feel the same way as this family, these farmers, these ranchers? Like, there's no border anymore.
No, and it's not localized. Like those folks said, down here in the South, it's really not localized along the border anymore. First of all, Sarah, can I just give you credit? I know you don't make these stories about you at all, but very few people can actually elicit the emotional and ground truth responses that you do in these stories. And I saw it firsthand with our visit, but what you're doing for the country is very important. It is putting not just a bright, shiny light, but it's conveying it in a way that makes it so that everyone knows this isn't a political thing. This isn't a left versus right thing. This is truly about doing what's right for the country. And I think what you're seeing in our district, this area that you and I toured is about 200 miles north of the border, right? So in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty close to 20% of the height of our nation in terms of length between the southern border and the northern border. So this problem is manifesting in the form of illegal grows, natural resources being stolen, citizens being threatened. But we've also found 10 dead bodies of these illegal immigrants who are indentured servants working there. Right? They have no one to report to. They have no one to express grievances to. They have no top coverage, and it's a humanitarian crisis not only at the southern border, but also 200 miles inland, and we're seeing that much further north than where we are as well. So this isn't just a border issue anymore. This is affecting the entire country. This cash, the grows that we saw, I think we did the math, and it's going to be about $10 to $15 billion of revenue being harvested out of our ground for nothing, for no cost at all, basically. And it's not staying here in the United States. It's going overseas. It's funding foreign operations, and it's actually self-perpetuating the illegal immigration problem that we're seeing in many ways. So,
I've got to say, you're absolutely right. This is a humanitarian crisis. And by the way, thank you so much for saying that. To me, it's so important to tell these stories and to let people speak for themselves, because the truth is the truth. There's just no way to take that away, regardless of who's in power. The truth is always going to be the truth. And we saw the struggle for the farmers in the Antelope Valley. We're seeing the struggle for the farmers and the residents along the U.S. border. But more importantly, I want all of you out there to really hear what the congressman is saying about the people that are indentured servants. For those of you who think, oh, well, it doesn't matter. There are so many innocent people that are coming because they're coming from places. Well, of course, that's tough. They're coming from countries where maybe they don't see a future and they want to come to America. I agree. America is the greatest nation on earth. I think everybody should want to come here. But think about the life of living in the shadows. Think about not being able to call the police or to be threatened by the people who are forcing you to work and telling you, well, if you don't work 24 hours, if you don't work this weekend for me, I'm going to call Inmigración. Or if you pick up the phone, like one of the people that was discovered dead out in the Antelope Valley, and call your wife to let them know where you're working, that person can kill you. And guess what? The police may not know for weeks. They may not even know until they find your body. Right. Those 10 may be the only 10, right? I mean, we talked to the detectives. I mean, they might not only be the only 10. There may be so many more out there, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's what they said. It's a big desert. And part of the problem is when it starts off as a small operation, there's not that much risk, there's not that much reward, even though the risk is pretty low. But the reality is now, because of the scale of these things and the amount of money, $10 to $15 billion is a lot of money. And now the reward is very high, and the risk is still relatively low. Although we can talk about what's been going on the ground in the last 2 weeks. We've been making good progress, but now the stakes are much higher, and these transnational criminal organizations are vested. So they are getting more brazen. They are getting more aggressive with the local constituents, and they're going to take actions here. And my biggest fear is we're going to lose an innocent civilian American life to these organizations that didn't exist in our neighborhoods just a couple of months ago, right? And this is why I'm fighting this fight. And the local citizens have been very vocal recently, obviously, and
incredibly brave, because we saw it for ourselves. And by the way, you're incredibly brave as well. We were out there. I want everyone out there to listen to what happened. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance. I know you're going to be on Sean Hannity tonight. You're going to be telling your story. And I think that's fantastic because it's a national platform and everyone should hear about this. But, we were out there and they were so brazen. And I'm talking about the people on the grows. They came out, they were filming us on their cameras, on their phone cameras as they were driving by us. Mm-hmm. We talked to residents who talked about how they had been threatened, and they were very concerned for their own safety. you are one of the very few members that I know that would actually stand up to these folks the way that you did. I mean, I give you kudos to that. I came home, I was telling my husband, he's a military guy. And I'm going to get into that with you because you're Air Force and I want to talk to you. I mean, this is incredible. I should have known about you. We should have been friends years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, we should have been. But he's just a brave congressional leader, taking charge, helping his constituents. Every single person, regardless of if they were Democrat or Republican, and I'm not just saying this, would tell me Mike Garcia was the only person who actually wanted to make a difference, who actually cared enough to take this all the way to Washington, right?
Yeah.
So two questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think, as much as that means to me personally, and I care more about this country and the safety of not only my constituents, but all Americans, probably above all things, especially in a role like this. But flying jets off of an aircraft carrier, you don't fear isn't really an option. And when you're confronted with something that's a true threat to our nation's security, I actually take it as a point of pride, and it's an honor to do what I've been doing and doing now. But what I'm encouraged by is now I'm not the only elected official in the local area. I'm not the only one who's taking action. And we're seeing the LA County Sheriff now move out in earnest and really start to put the right resources behind it. We've seen the county supervisor get on board, the local state assembly and state senator getting engaged as well. So we were the catalyst, but like we said from early on, this takes all levels of government, and as courageous as the federal representative may be, we can only do so much from the federal government. It really is the state, county, and city that also need to get on board. And we're seeing the shoots of that cooperation, and we are making progress. So it's a great thing.
I think that is a great thing. Before I get to your time in the military, because I want people to hear about you, the man, not just the issue, but I think it's good for people to get to know you the way I did. But one of the things that you brought up was the amount of money that was being made off of these grows. Mm-hmm. And I want you all out there to kind of imagine this. It's kind of like, the idea of Breaking Bad, the show Breaking Bad, right? Like out there, you don't know who's running these operations. It could be anyone. But with an international twist. So if you have billions of dollars being laundered overseas, this isn't about just smoking some pot, guys. This is about money going overseas and drugs moving up our corridor to the East Coast, and people actually using that financing, those billions of dollars, to possibly pay for weapons, for war, for God only knows what, for fentanyl operation overseas. Who knows? We don't have anyone tracking this. Well, maybe we do, but as far as I knew, I only know that there's so much, especially since they defunded the police departments. Federal government isn't paying as much attention to this. So this isn't just about growing some pot. These are massive operations that are funding the deaths, I believe, of people overseas and possibly in the United States. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're spot on. We talked about the number $10 to $15 billion. I think that's a conservative estimate. When you look at the grand scheme of things, that's about 2% of our own nation's DOD budget on an annual basis, 2% coming out of just marijuana grows in one valley in one state of the nation. So that magnitude of money leaving our shores, it's not just that we're missing out on the tax revenue. It's that these funds are going to bad places with bad intentions, with folks with bad intentions. So it's a massive scale. And this is, again, going back to the whole of government approach I was talking about. From a federal level, I desperately need this attorney general to start paying more attention. I had a committee hearing with him last week, and I asked him to come support us, come look at it. He was going to reach out to the DEA director, which is great. That's a good start, and I think we're going to make progress with the DEA. But the reality is this is an ATF thing. This is an FBI thing. They need to follow the money and figure out who's paying for all of this, not just to eradicate this in our neighborhood, but to chase the money flow and actually do something meaningful at a higher level in the interest of our nation's security. If it's marijuana grows, it's something else tomorrow, and meth and opioids, et cetera.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, did Attorney General Merrick Garland say that he was going to do it? I mean, I kind of remember that he did commit to looking into this, right?
It was a soft commitment, and it wasn't a no. Where he's going to talk to the DEA to make sure that everything I was saying corroborates, and I'm sure he'll get the same response from him that we're telling him. So I'm not too worried about that. I just really want to make sure that when they commit, that actually turns into something meaningful from a funding perspective, and from a policy perspective, the local sheriffs can only charge about $19,000 a year to the federal pocket of money that's paying for overtime for marijuana eradication.
Explain how that works so people understand that, because I don't think for everyone to understand that you all have a certain pocket, right, in each community that police officers can use for funding. I mean, and that the sheriffs can use for funding. Mm-hmm. When you borrow money, you're saying from the DEA, right, from funding that extends that. Explain what happens and how that works, or how it doesn't work.
It's extremely constrained right now in LA. LA County got defunded by, I think, about $111 million. They got some of that back. So they are relying on the federal government for some of these emergency task force operations. And the federal government has a bucket of money available to all states where local law enforcement officers can charge to a DEA budget for overtime for task force in an effort of eradicating illegal marijuana grows. So that's a good thing. That means the functionality of the funding is already there. We have the infrastructure in place to support local law enforcement. The problem is that one of the stipulations of this money is that they can only charge $19,000 a year, which is really only a few months of overtime for local sheriffs, right? So what was happening is these pots of money would dry up after 6 or 7 months into the year, and marijuana grows year round. It only takes 90 days for a plant to be done, and if you don't have the enforcement side of this, you're effectively, any progress you make during 6 months is lost in the following 6 months if you don't have a full-time task force. So
that's what was happening, right? And that's what was happening. So we'd see it everywhere. Weren't they also shortening the marijuana grow so that it was like they were giving it a half-life? So it's like, this is incredible. These guys are like, working and creating hybrids out there. And so now it's like marijuana grows in half the time out there or something to that effect.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. It's just two things that they're doing. One is they're genetically modifying and evolving the plants so that they blossom earlier. And then when they blossom, that's when they're actually producing the THC and the drug that is sold. And by the way, this also goes into CBD oils, right? It's not just the traditional marijuana use. The other thing that they're doing is they're literally planting these plants in solo cups and small pots, indoors or in trailers under powerful lighting. So it's out of sight, and they transplanted at about the 30-day mark. So it's actually in the soil for only about 60 days at that point. And you can do, 4 or 5 crops a year. And if you remember, they were saying each plant is worth about $1,500. And so when you look at some of these grows where there's 3,000, 4,000 plants, these are $5 to $10 million operations every year just in the one nursery. And they had a bust a few days ago where they busted an operation with 3,000 plants. And if I do the math, I think that's around $5.5 million of marijuana that was destroyed. So, and that's where we've got to get them. We've got to not only remove. So
something is happening though. Something is happening.
Yeah, the sheriff is the case, and he and I are going to continue to coordinate, make sure that we don't cavitate the process here. We've got to keep the revenue source coming in. We've got to keep the urgency there. Get the law enforcement fired up to join these task force and keep the pressure on. Otherwise, the problem will just come back and regenerate.
Let's talk a little bit about you and your life. I think it's so fascinating, and people don't really get a chance to hear that. I know you probably didn't have all the time in the world to talk to Sean about everything, but I hope to get a little bit of more time from you to talk about you're a first generation American citizen, right?
That's right.
Which is awesome. Tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so my dad's from Sonora, Mexico. He immigrated here when he was 9 years old. My grandfather moved the entire family out to Fillmore, right there just west of my district right now. And my grandfather was in construction, started a construction firm, and it was really the American dream, right? The American success story started with very little, moved to the country and worked his way up through hard work, literally manual labor, created a thriving business. And my mother, German Irish, and we grew up lower middle class, just humble beginnings. And my stepfather was an LAPD officer and a Vietnam vet, so I was raised with an appreciation of service to country, service to the community, and especially to our Vietnam vets who frankly were treated like crap on the heels of the returning to the country. And
they were.
So, I grew up wanting to fly fighter jets for a living. And when I was 7 years old, I took a tour of the USS Ranger aircraft carrier and just fell in love with the idea of naval aviation. And then the movie Top Gun came out when I was 10 years old. So by then I was
sold
on the whole program.
That's awesome. So when you were 7, that was it. That was what you wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, someone saying, I want to be a Major League Baseball player. People look at you like, that's great, kid, but what's your plan B? And I just never lost sight of that focus. And I wanted to get into the Naval Academy, and I worked hard to get into the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Graduated towards the top of my class there, was able, before going to flight school, I was able to go to Georgetown for a graduate program and received a master's degree in national security studies. And then went through flight school, and it turned out I had never actually flown a plane in my entire life, if you can believe it. I just knew I wanted to fly.
Well, yeah, it's like me, right? I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. When are we going to have a chance to fly our own planes, right?
Right, exactly, exactly, yeah.
Maybe I'll jump into the pilot seat, when I'm on Southwest. I don't think we can do that anymore, but.
Well, we can do it once, I'm sure. But,
yeah, right.
So, but it turns out I had just a natural knack for flying, and I was blessed to be able to fly the F-18 Super Hornet, which is actually right here behind me on the painting there. But
I know I was looking at. Are you actually up in that flight, or is that just one that you got, or is
that's a stock photo?
Okay.
I got plenty of good videos and photos we can share. But so carrier based, I was able to serve the nation during the first 8 months of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 off the USS Nimitz. We'd fly 8-hour combat missions, 6 to 8 hours on every day, pretty much, and we were just supporting young Marines, young Army soldiers. Folks like your husband on the ground who were doing their God's work down on the ground and seeing terrible conditions. And we provided top cover, and we were hunting at the time Saddam Hussein, and they found him shortly after we left the theater. But absolutely the best job in the world. Got to see and do things that most human beings can't even imagine. And for me, just being able to serve the nation in that capacity was a tremendous honor. And ended up staying in for about 12, 14 years or so. And then I rotated out to an aerospace company called Raytheon. And so I got to learn about the business world, and I got to ultimately I was running a portfolio there. I was on the hook for $7.5 billion of revenue every year. And I had 120, 140 folks working for me, and great job again, supporting the war fighters and evolving technology that gives Americans an unfair technical advantage in the battle space. And but then we had an election in 2018, and I wasn't happy with the results, and I didn't like who was representing me. And so kind of like the first story, I had never run for political office. I had never been on a school board or a water board, but I decided that I was going to run for Congress as the first step.
I caught that.
Yeah. And it, as wild as it was and all the drama and theatrics, God was on our side. And frankly, the constituents in California's 25th district were paying attention and really appreciated the values, the message. And I'm blessed again to be able to serve in Congress and represent 750,000.
I really love this idea of more veterans going and service, in service to the country in Congress, becoming lawmakers, because you, like others, like Dan Crenshaw and others, have a different perspective. You really understand what veterans, what do they say is roughly like 1% of all volunteer force in the United States of America. These are people that, like you, willing to sacrifice and stand up and fight for your country and give of yourselves. And now you're in Washington, D.C. Are there any issues, veterans issues, that you're concerned with, things that you would like to see? I know that you have a real big fight on your hands in California. You're dealing with unimaginable, odds and things going on there. But what about like as for a national policy? Is there anything you're doing there?
Yeah, first, let me start by saying everything that's happening in California is going to become, if it's not already, a national issue, right? So we're seeing things that started in California now become national problems. This border crisis was really an extension and an instantiation of California's sanctuary city policies early on, right? So taxes, everything else that's bad is going with it. But specifically from a military perspective and from a national security perspective, it's hard to believe, but this September is going to be the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And since 9/11, we have been fighting this global war on terror. Folks like Marty have done 4 or 5, in some cases 8 deployments overseas and seen combat operations that were different than what our veterans in Vietnam saw. They were gone in many cases longer than a year. They go multiple times. They're fighting terrorist organizations that really don't care how they kill people. They're seeing brutal things and being exposed to weapons that are just horrifying in nature, and they've suffered from that, not just physically but mentally. And it's been going on for 20 years. So, recognizing that we need to take care of our troops. We need to let them come home. I'm not saying come home unconditionally on a certain date, like what this president has announced relative to the Afghanistan withdrawal. But we do need to figure out how to reconstitute our forces and give our troops a break, recapitalize and modernize our equipment. China and Russia have been evolving for the last 20 years at a rate that we haven't been, frankly, in several domains. And we see it not only in the cyber world now, right in front of our eyes, but also in space. We are not near peer threats to them. They are actually superior to us in that domain in many ways. Hypersonic weapons, for instance, these intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach out and touch us throughout the United States from China, real threats, right? So modernizing our forces and taking care of our troops, and our troops deserve a bigger pay raise than the 3.5% we give them. Frankly, it's astounding that.
I think they would all agree with you on that one. That's a huge one. I mean, they would all agree with you on all of them. And I think the national security issues that you just brought up are something that I've been worried about for a long time. We're not as advanced in space. We are trying. Space Force is a whole new dimension for us in our military, new military branch. But truly, the Chinese on the dark side of the moon, the operations that they're conducting here on Earth, I mean, dealing with cyber and cyber warfare, we saw with the Colonial Pipeline hack, and the possibility that an enemy state could hack our infrastructure, go from the cyber world straight into the infrastructure, damaging our country. I mean, there are all of these issues. And sometimes, and a lot of times, I feel that Washington just does not take this seriously enough. Like it's,
that's right.
Pretend.
A lot of them don't even understand the problem set. And I think it's both sides of the aisle, right? This isn't just a one party problem. This is a lot of folks who are representing or legislating in some cases in all 3 branches of government, frankly, don't really understand the problem that we're describing. And they don't understand the effects and just how bad things can get. 9/11 was 20 years ago. In some cases, it seems like yesterday. But when you think about it, that's almost 2 generations now that don't remember how vulnerable we could be as a nation and how dangerous those around us could be. And we're seeing it in Israel now as a reminder, but things could get a hell of a lot worse. And we're on a trajectory to get there if we don't start paying attention. And it's not just the service members, right? It's the families, as you know, the spouses, the kids, they pay the price as well. And I wrote a bill for military spouses so that they can, their professions, if they're credentialed, say, as a nurse or as a teacher or a real estate agent, those credentials can be transported across state lines without having
best bill. Yeah. The best bill ever. And just for all of you out there, I know for you, those of you in the military, if you don't know this already, but that bill actually allows, it used to be that people have to get credentialed every time they moved. If you moved from Mississippi, to North Carolina or from wherever to wherever, you were constantly having to re-credential yourself. It was just insane. That's right. This bill is unbelievable. It's like, why didn't anybody think about this before? Because the families are paying the bigger price.
Right. And to be honest, this wasn't my idea. This was just the base commander in our district. We have Edwards Air Force Base outside of our district. And the commander just said, hey, it'd be great if we can fix this. And we need to be able to recruit people and we need to be able to retain people. And California is not business friendly. And frankly, California needs, nurses, they need doctors, they need professionals and school teachers, right? So it's a win-win for the community. So this will be a bipartisan supported bill. I think we're going to be able to get this done. And it'll make a meaningful change. But nowadays, it's not good enough just to fly to recruit military folks, right? It's not good enough just to work for Space Force. The spouse, the entire family needs to be on board. And if we don't do that on the heels of 20 years of these conflicts, we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're not able to recruit talent and patriots.
I know I'm going to have to let you go in a minute, but I want you to come back on this show again and again, because I think there's so much we can talk about, because I do believe what's happening in California affects the nation entirely. I mean, this isn't just, endemic. This isn't just endemic to California. It's about all of us working together and trying to find solutions. And
That's right.
California, just like Texas, just like Arizona, just like Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, where we've seen an escalation in heroin addiction and fentanyl. I mean, the border affects every single one of us, but guess what? We affect every single one of each other. And if we don't pay attention to what's happening in all of our states, and with our federal government, it's going to be a mess, like we're seeing overseas, like we're seeing here. What would your message be to President Biden? I ask everyone this question because I think right now we need to get a message up to the White House, because nobody is talking. We haven't seen Kamala Harris come down to the border, the Vice President, Madame Vice President Kamala Harris. I will say that with respect.
Number two.
Yeah, number two. And President Biden and others. What is the message to them about what is happening in our country and where we need to be focused?
They've got to take their political hats off and start actually doing their jobs. Many Americans have forgotten that the president is actually also the commander in chief and ultimately the number one responsible for our nation's security. And these things that we're seeing right now are not coincidences. We're 110, 120 days into his administration. We have $30 trillion worth of debt. That's a national security crisis. We are seeing these porous borders result in the highest number of illegals invading our nation in the history of our country. 174,000, I think, came across the border last month. We're seeing multiple world leaders from peer threats, not near peer threats in the form of Russia and China, testing our resolve, threatening our allies. We're now seeing a powder keg in the Middle East in the form of Hamas attacking our number one critical ally, Israel, with no real response from the United States. We're pulling troops out of theaters of operation that we shouldn't be pulling unconditionally out of with a prescribed date. This is a confluence of national security challenges that is unprecedented. And honestly, and this isn't, a Trump versus Biden conversation. It's not a left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. But 2 years ago, we actually had one of the most stable eras in this nation, in fact, the planet's history. And we have seen a good chunk, if not most of that, evaporate just in the last 4 years. So the message is pay attention, stop being political, do your job. And if you're not going to do it, the American people will hire someone else to do it. It is absolutely critical that we get good people to represent us in the House of Representatives. I think we're on the verge of getting a majority back here shortly. I think that's true in the Senate as well. But this is a commander-in-chief who has actually decided to put us in the riskiest part of the political and national security spectrum that he could have ever imagined, that any one of us could have imagined. And it needs to stop right now. And he's doing it for optics. I'm not sure how much he's aware of it, but the folks around him are aware of it. And number two, by the way, isn't any more competent than the president is right now either.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it is quite a frightening prospect if they don't pay attention to it and if they don't get that political hat off and start doing their job, because this is not really a game. It's not really a game. It's an issue that will affect all of us. These issues, foreign policy issues, what's happening to our great ally Israel right now, it's going to affect every single one of us. And I'm afraid with what we're seeing happening both on a national and international level, it could break. It could break us.
And let me end with this, because this is important, right? What we're seeing in the Middle East right now, Hamas is to Israel what China is to the United States. Okay, Israel has the firepower and the allies to take care of Hamas. I worry about the magazine depth and how long they can sustain and feed the Iron Dome to support and defend themselves. The United States relative to China, we have the technology and the capacity to defend ourselves against. But again, in that case, China has been investing in capacity. They've been investing in modernizing. And so we do have a challenge over a long period of time of defending ourselves against this Chinese threat. We just need to realize that and invest in the right domains and invest in the right programs to protect ourselves in the long run. And that's why this president needs to figure that out. And we shouldn't be cutting DOD budgets. We need to be investing in our military. The other thing I'll say, Sarah, before we end is this isn't all doom and gloom. The fact that we have California as a blueprint actually should give us a lot of hope. We've seen the before and after pictures already. We've seen where all these policies in California, whether it's our election processes, high taxes, sanctuary cities, bills like AB 5 that kill independent contractors, our infrastructure is terrible. They all have direct consequences and results, and they all have an ugly twin sister at the federal level. And the good thing is that we recognize those ugly twin sisters, and we can fight them, and we can prevent them from becoming national law and actually save the country and prevent the nation from becoming California. So I'm optimistic. We've just got to get the right folks to do the right job for us and with the right intentions, and people who really don't care about politics and just care about the Constitution.
Well, I'm a glass half full kind of girl, and I believe you. And I say, get those nasty twin sisters out of Washington, D.C. And I think that's what the American people are going to do. I think come election, you're going to see a change in this country, because as much as people can be negative, I actually believe in the American people, whether they're Democrat, Independent, or Republican. When people start to see the reality of what's happening on the ground, what could happen to their families and to their children, I believe they're going to do the right thing and vote the right people in office, no matter what political party they opine for, right?
Exactly.
This is about our country, and this is about saving our nation. And there is no one better to do it than you, Congressman. I hope every other congressman listens to this and takes charge like you, not only protecting your constituents and fighting the good fight, but doing it for your country. And I'm really grateful to know you. I want you back on the show. And
Absolutely.
by the way, his wife is an amazing interior designer. This is what I'm hearing. And I'm going to bug her. I'm going to bug her real soon, because I need someone to come over here and help me fix my house. I'm just throwing it out there.
She's an even better wife. But we'll get her over there and help out as much as we can. And thank you, Sarah, for doing everything you're doing and being the patriot that you are. And, happy to come back anytime.
Like Congressman Garcia said, we are at a time that's very critical in our nation. In fact, we're at a critical time around the world. We can see what's happening in Israel, the escalation of violence that I never believed I would have seen under President Trump. And I'm not saying this because of President Trump versus Biden, but maybe it is. Because President Trump's policy with Israel was to treat Israel as they are, a true ally of the United States of America, and not step back and just allow the Middle East and our Israeli ally to face the wrath of their enemies that are around them. And it's horrible. It's something that we should all be concerned about. Israel is our only true ally in the Middle East. And we see the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. You know that my foundation, the Dark Wire and Investigation Foundation, is fighting that. We're fighting hate. We're fighting anti-Semitism. But it deals with Israel. I want you to listen to Rashida Tlaib, congressional member Rashida Tlaib, her, Ilhan Omar, and the others. And by the way, the Biden administration are not friends of Israel. They are not friends of Israel at all. I want you to hear Rashida Tlaib. And by the way, put something in your ears, because she is screaming like a banshee, and it gave me the worst headache the first time I heard this. But listen.
Our freedom is interconnected with Black, brown, Indigenous. It is connected. What they are doing to the Palestinian people is what they continue to do to our Black brothers and sisters here, to the immigrant community here, and enough. So I want you to know this. As you are marching for freedom of Palestine, please know that you must be marching for everybody's freedom. It is all interconnected. And so this is how you grow this movement. This is how you spread the truth. Thank you so much. Thank you. Salam.
It's all lies. I want you to tell you. Remember the Benjamin's baby? Wasn't that what Ilhan Omar said? You know, this is anti-Semitism wrapped up in this disguise as like, we're against Israel. Look at what's happened to Israel. Hamas and Hezbollah, I believe terrorist organizations, full terrorist organizations, just bombarding Israel. Israel having to use its Iron Dome to protect itself. And you know what Hamas and Hezbollah do? They basically put children and women and whoever, or they put the missiles and they put all of their weapons in schools and then go, hey, Israel, what are you going to do about that? They use women and children as human shields. So when Israel retaliates and then there's a death, it's all crocodile tears. I feel terrible for the children and for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian children, for whoever. I feel terrible for anybody that loses their life in a war or in this hate that has been brewing for however thousands of years. But let me tell you this. The Israeli people have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to protect their families and their children. They have a right to not be attacked by their enemies, and they have a right to exist. End of story. Sorry if you don't want Israel to exist. Sorry if you're anti-Semitic. By the way, for all of you out there, when Jenny Taylor wrote these stories, a very proud and I think one of the greatest people I've ever worked with, Jenny works with me. I don't even say she works for me. I say she works with me. Jenny Taylor is amazing. She's always on the ball, getting stories out, working 24/7. And she's very proud to be Jewish. And when she put out those tweets, and there were people out there that threatened her life on Twitter, threatened to poison her, asked her how Jewish she was, I was disgusted. You do that. I am reporting you. You threaten someone's life, someone who works for me, and I will report you over and over and over again. And you know what, FBI, you better be doing your job. That is a direct threat. That is a direct threat. Look, I'm not saying we can't talk and listen to one another, but we're at a time right now, a critical time in our country, where we are not holding out the olive branch to our friends, we're doing it to our enemies, to people that literally want to destroy our allies like Iran, because we know the Biden administration is desperate for that Iran deal. You know, there are people fighting them on it, but they want that back. They want that Obama-Iran deal. They want it tomorrow. And they do not care about the state of Israel. That is our ally. And that is why under President Trump, he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He said to everybody who came into his Oval Office, what are you talking about? There's not going to be a big war because I stand up for my ally, because I do what I actually said I'm going to do. That's not going to happen. And it didn't happen. And in fact, we were on a trajectory towards peace. But this administration is weak. And our enemies know that. I want you to think about that. And that is why we are seeing in Israel what is happening today. That is why Hezbollah and Hamas and these terrorist organizations are going to feel more and more emboldened. And don't let people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and others on the left tell you anything different. Because they are lying to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Thank you so much for listening and for going on that journey with me to California. I have so much more to share with you. I just returned, like I said at the top of the show, from Del Rio, Texas. We've got so much to share with you on that. There's so many stories that still we haven't even touched the surface, haven't even scraped the surface of. Remember, here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back. I want you to go to my website, saracarter.com. Go to Sara A, don't forget the A, Carter.com. And I want you to sign up for my email list. This way I can reach you no matter what. I got to tell you, they will shadow ban. They will shadow ban my stories on Facebook, on Twitter, and you won't see them. But if you've got the email and you're on the email list, I can get you those stories directly. They'll come right to your home. They won't be able to stop it. You will take you directly to my website and you'll see that. And remember, please subscribe to this podcast. If you love it, leave us a review. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what stories you'd like us to cover. You can come see the videos on Rumble, although today I'm looking kind of worse for wear. Go to Rumble, go to YouTube. You can see everything there. And again, thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for making this show such a success. Remember, here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back.
Hi, it's Dana Lash, host of The Dana Show. Every day, I'm here to keep you up to speed on the most important stories and info that you need to know in your very busy life. And if you're always on the go and you want to stay connected, just download our daily podcast and take it with you. It's a great way to get up to speed on what you need to know and what legacy media may not be telling you. Visit danaradio.com and click on the podcast link or subscribe at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.